and welcome to Tonight here on DJing TV. I'm John Young, and I'll be doing tonight's show. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the tips for getting back into the basics of DJing. For a lot of you out there, 2020 has been a year that basically has gone by the wayside. Maybe you've done an event, maybe you haven't. You're going to get to the point where and I'm hearing from people on a regular basis of people who are kind of lost. And that's what tonight's really going to be getting about, is getting back to the reason we got into this and the reasons where our passion came from for the DJ world. So thank you for joining us. I've got JC out there. Sal, thank you for being with. I've got the comments up on that, so I'll be able to see the comments if you guys want to put any shout outs into that. And we'll get going into tonight's show. So getting back into the basics of DJing, I've got 10 tips that I put together for tonight's show, and I'll go through those. For some of you who've been into this and you've been busy and you've been doing shows, this is probably not going to be applicable to you completely. There might be some things that be like, oh yeah, that's an interesting thought. This is really designed for those who have done their one show for the year, and now they're getting to the point is they're like, okay, I just don't know. We'll start out with our very first tip here. Our first tip, getting that up here. Boom, boom. First thing you need to do to get back into the basics of DJing is really to fall in love with music again. For a lot of us, we got into this because we loved music. Maybe it was we loved the power of being able to pick the song, pick the next song, which we thought would be the right one. But we had this love for music, and that's really what most DJs who have gotten into it have or had. And this is one of the areas in which DJs are talking about 2020, is that there's been this love-hate thing going on. And it's not just because not new music, that their passion and love for music has been with them and with them for so long. And now they look at what they can't do. They can't go and do the thing that they love. And I've heard from numerous DJs the hurt that they have by listening to music, that they listen to it and they hear, a song that would be typically played on their dance floor. And they're like, there's just this pain in their heart. And we really need to try to get past that hurt. And I think part of that, getting past that hurt of how music may hurt the soul right now, is looking at it as getting back into the music that we loved when we first started. When we first started, we had songs, maybe that were hits, maybe that were not, but there were songs that just spoke to our hearts. Maybe it was something that your parents played. Maybe it was an older sibling, that's music that they played. But I think this is that time where we need to kind of go back to those early songs and the music that spoke to us in those early days, and says, that this is something you want to look into. This is something you want to make part of your life. Rekindling that passion for music, I think, is one of those small aspects that, even as we've been doing this, and when we were busy, you get to a point after a while, and I myself, I've been there. I've talked to a number of DJs who are like, I listen to talk radio. I don't really listen to ESPN. I don't listen to music much anymore. And I think part of that is because we've really lost that love of music, because we have the songs that we know work on our dance floor, and we aren't digging into songs that probably won't work on our dance floor, that we're listening to for our own personal pleasure. So finding those songs, and this would take us back to, for a lot of us, our very first mixtapes we were making, the ones we were recording off the radio. I actually found one of those the other day, an old TDK, I believe it was a TDK, a cassette that was done in the early, would have been probably the early to mid 80s, because Men at Work were big when that particular one. So I was in high school at the time, probably junior high school, whenever it was. We got to get back to those days and that music, and taking maybe that mixtape that we spend so many hours making, which today would be like nothing to make a playlist like that. But for us to go back to those songs and those artists and really kind of start the process again, for lack of a better way to describe it. Yeah, we can go to Spotify, but those Spotify lists are made by people who might be our age or might have our past experiences, but most likely don't. In order for us to really be able to kind of go back to our roots of our music, we've got to go back to those artists and those songs. Dig them out. Go back, pull out your CDs, all your CDs, and pull out the ones that you personally bought for your own pleasure, not the ones you bought for the gig or the shows, but the ones that you bought for you. And take your kids through that journey. There's nothing greater than to go through and say, hey, here's a disc. I've never used it for a show, but I bought this because of this song. And this is my memory of what this song meant to me. Sharing those stories with your kids is just a fabulous way to get back into that into the music and really to kind of fall in love with that music that brought us into the industry. So our number 2 that we want to hit tonight, let's get that up here. I think one of the things that we have is for a lot of us, we've had kind of our signature style of performance. We've had things that we have done in our performances. And I think with this, the whole COVID situation, for some of us, it's going to be a whole different starting point. And they go out there and offer what we offered before. And this is what I'm doing. Yes, we have those experiences and yes, we have those abilities, but I think we're going to really have to find what is going to be our new signature things. What are we going to be doing now that's going to fit guests or clients or events going forward, because it's going to be different than what we did in the past. Things are evolving right now. We're seeing people doing a few dances here and there, and some of those dances are having some flashbacks to past success, but they're starting to evolve. And I think as time goes on and as the dances evolve, next year we're going to have a different thing. And you may now need to be known as having a new signature element to what you're doing. And that's okay. Maybe you were a microphone person, or maybe you were a game person who had the people up and doing a lot of games, and maybe those times are just not going to happen. And now you need to create a new signature thing for what you're doing. Or maybe your signature game or activity has changed. Really, this is the time to we're going to be recreating ourselves, intentionally or unintentionally. Intentionally meaning that I'm going to be proactive in creating something that I think is going to fit, or unintentionally where the world is leaving what I did, and now I've got to figure out what I can do to create that new thing. So creating a new signature style, I think, is going to be something we're going to have to be looking at as we go forward into 2021. And if you're kind of getting back into it, something fresh, something new is really great. Along the lines of that is finding some signature songs. And this is where we're going back to that love of music. We used to drop some of our favorite songs in that. And if you listen to us on Tuesday night when Brian and Jay and I are talking, there are some songs that they drop into their shows even yet today, depending upon the application and such, but there's songs that they drop that are their signature songs. Sometimes we've gotten so programmed for, this is the wedding songs, this is the wedding group right here, and we don't put any of our own personal flavor or our own personal passion into the music anymore. And I think finding some signature songs that we're passionate about, where when that song hits, that we are alive and we're moving and we're doing, and it's not the fake thing, with the it isn't that. It's something where you are showing a level of emotion, because when you bring that energy to that song, the guests and such are going to see that, and it's going to be they're going to reflect that, and it's going to bounce back and forth. And the next thing you know, it's a great moment on your floor. Finding a signature or new signature songs could be a way to kind of bring back that passion for the DJ world. Next, getting reacquainted with our gear. This is actually something that, as we've gotten more technically advanced, we get these things and we have all these bells and whistles and buttons and different things. And half the time we don't know what most of them do. When we first started out, we pretty much knew what every button on that mixer would do, because we would sit and play with it. We would do this. And granted, there weren't as many. I get that. But to go and to become reacquainted with our gear, to spend some time with it, to know what's nuances and what in cables and wires, everything, just to become really, really more intimate, and I don't mean that in a creepy way, but just to really understand what you have there and to be playing with things and to spend some time going through the settings on the back of the speaker to hear how different things sound. We sometimes get so busy with all the other aspects of what we do that we don't do the things we did when we first started. When we first started, we had our subs and our tops and our amplifiers and our crossovers, and we sat there and played with that. Okay, if I turn the crossover here and I turn the bass amp up a little bit, and let's say, okay, now that is, okay, what if I do this and do this and do this? Okay. Oh, that sounds a little bit better. Oh, now I'm going to go over here and play with this equalizer on the 3-band EQ on my mixer. Yeah, I had one of those old ones. That's what we did. We played, we did things, we became really intimately acquainted with our gear, and that's something I think we've lost. And part of that will bring back that passion, because now you know the stuff in and out, and you can do things with it that you probably couldn't have done before. So becoming reacquainted with our gear is a big thing. As we go forward, I think simplifying things and kind of starting out what you're going to be doing next in your phase of DJing in a simpler way is something to really really look at. We can get incredibly complicated, and there are clients out there who are going to pay for incredibly complicated. I get that. And then if they pay for it and you can do it, more power to you. But I think we're going to find out that going simple is going to be really the trend. As I'm seeing DJs who are out there doing shows right now, I'm looking at their setups, and yes, some of them are elaborate, no question about it. But I'm seeing much more simple type shows. When we first started out, it was speakers and a little bit of lighting, and off we went. And that was pretty much it. We didn't have uplighting, we didn't have photo booths, we didn't have intelligent lighting, because pretty much back then it was probably two things of 4 floodlights back and forth. And that was a great light show at one particular time, back in that 80s time frame when the lights could change color and go back and forth. It was really great. Simplifying, I think, is going to be part of that process. If we have too elaborate, it's going to be more stress on us, more of that passion lost for what we do. Simplifying, being streamlined, I think is something to definitely kind of look toward as you go into getting back into the basics of DJing. I think having kind of realistic goals is another area as we go forward, of realistic goals of how many events you're going to be doing, what to expect from the events, because the things are going to change, is that we can't expect the same, or more next year until we have an understanding of what the changes on our dance floor are going to be like. Setting realistic goals and saying, hey, you know what, if I can do 10 events next year, I'm going to be incredibly happy. I've heard people saying, and I'm looking at, I'll personally be doing 100 shows next year. I don't think so. Maybe you are, and that's great if you can. I'm not saying, but setting a realistic goal and saying, hey, you know what, I may not be able to, on a typical year, I would have done 70 shows or whatever it is. Maybe next year, if you can hit that 20, setting that realistic goal of what you can do. Because when we first started out, we didn't think we were going to be doing 100 shows our first year or our second year. We had, so I know I can book out maybe twice a month, then maybe I can book out a couple more times next year, and maybe in 3 years, I'm going to be full schedule. Setting those goals of what is, because you were going from, in essence, zero. In many of our worlds, you go from 0, and you're not going to go from 0 to 60. Unfortunately, yes, it's possible contract-wise, but I think there's going to be things that are going to make it that it's going to be a ramp up rather than all of a sudden we're in the deep end of the pool. So setting realistic goals as you go into next year, I think is going to be very, very big for a lot of us. Another area, when we first started, we didn't get hung up on perfection. We went out there, and to the best of our ability, we did the best we could. Now, with training and with advice and with knowing other DJs and watching other DJs, we've gotten better, and we can expect a higher level of results from what we do. I think when we've had a year off, and as much as you love to practice and you love to do things and you can do videos, and I've been spinning on those types of things, they're great. But you're not going to have perfection. You're not going to be able to perform at the same level just because you haven't been in front of a crowd doing the things. And what you're doing now is probably different than what you did, last year. So expecting perfection, we can strive for it, but don't expect it, because if you get hung up on perfection and wanting to make it just this perfect thing, it never can happen exactly as you envision it. It can get close and you can have some success, but if you get hung up on it, it's going to really cause you to lose that passion for DJing. When we were first there were nights where if we could hit 80%, we were like, woohoo, this was a great night. We didn't have to have perfection. We just had to have growth and improvement and doing a little bit better. Our mixes were better this weekend on a couple of songs than they were last weekend. Yay, that was a win. We need to get that perfection, set it off to the side for the time being, and really focus on those little, those little wins that we have from that those little successful amounts like that. Excuse me. Next one is networking like you used to do. It used to be that when we first started, we were telling our friends that, hey, I'm a DJ and I do this. And yeah, a lot of our people know what we are, but a lot of those contacts that we had, they had the type of events they had, I would say we kind of graduated out of. A lot of our friends were maybe having a backyard party, or maybe our friends were doing this or do that, or they knew somebody and they were having a smaller event. It wasn't the big $5,000 DJ wedding. We need to kind of back up a little bit and network like we used to, telling our friends that, hey, you know what, things have just kind of slowed down. If anybody who's having a backyard party or somebody's doing some things, not going on Facebook and saying, hey, I'm available this weekend. No, don't do that. Network like we used to. Talk to people. Go and see them. If you're seeing them face to face, if you can, call them on a phone, share things. one-on-one, even if it is a messenger message. That's a little more personal than just to put it on Facebook and tag somebody. Oh my God, that would be horrible. But network like we used to do, where we actually communicated individually with people. And the word of mouth, of course, yeah, Yellow Page, Gus mentions Yellow Page. Thank you for joining us. Scott, Gus, Trevor, thank you guys. Ronald. Yellow Page just came out yesterday. We used to spend a lot of money on Yellow Pages. There isn't even a DJ listing, and there's not even a wedding. There was one wedding thing, and I think it was, I don't remember what it was. It was completely gone out of the Yellow Pages. Word of mouth was great, and that's what we're really needing to do. Is we're needing to do word of mouth, but we're needing to do word of mouth through our friends circle and maybe even our family circle to get some of these shows that we probably, again, had kind of graduated out of. Because we may, in some cases, need to be looking at getting our name out there again, as things have changed, and again, we're going to be going from zero to whatever we're going to. Don't overlook the chance. There's going to be chances to perform on odd days, odd times that you may even be performing for free. Getting your name out there might be something that is important enough and valuable enough that, say, you're going to do a Friday chamber event or a Tuesday night chamber event for free, when it could then lead to more contacts and more connections. Don't overlook those chances, because those chances to perform right now and coming into 2021 are going to be fairly limited. There's not going to be a lot of opportunities. Don't pass those up just because it's free. It might be, in this situation, the time to kind of look into doing that. The next one, when we first started out and it came time to buy gear, most of the time we were basically buying gear, and we would buy it and we were paying cash for it. And we had another job that we were doing that, but we were paying cash for our gear. We didn't spend, and we didn't put a ton of money on credit cards. We cut the check, handed it to the dealer, the local dealer. He gave us our speakers, and we were good. Then we came back 2 months later. We cut another check, gave it to the dealer, and then he handed us our subwoofers. Then a couple months later, we came back, cut him another check, handed it to him. He handed us the second amplifier for our system. Paying for your gear or any of your improvements right now with cash, I think, is going to be a big thing for the next probably year and a half, because putting things on cards in the old, I want to say old ways, throughout the 2000s, we could go and you knew that prom season was coming up or wedding season was coming up. So we get into January, February, okay, you could look around. Then we get into February and March. You could go and you could confidently go and say, okay, I can put this down. I can buy this $5,000 worth of uplighting. I've already pre-sold it to about 10 different events here in April and May. I'll have it paid for by June. I'll have very little minimal interest, if any. I can do this. This isn't that world anymore, because things can shut down in an instant, as we've seen, and it can stay shut down for a lot. If you can't pay cash for any of the gear or any of these things you need right now, it's really one of those things to kind of step back and say, do I really need it? I mean, if you do, and the only way to do it is on credit to keep going, because you have events, you do what you need to do. But keep that in mind, because when we first started out, we didn't work that way. That was maybe some of you did, but most of us, it was that cash thing. Is once the money came in, then we could afford to upgrade and grow our business. And if we go back to that, I think that's going to help financially for a lot of you going into 2021. Let's see, where are we up to? Okay. I've got one more. That was 10. I wanted to add one more to talk about here a little bit. Tonight's going to be, again, a little bit shorter show. And then Dan and I will be back at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock Eastern for our final show tonight. But this one, keep in mind that, and this is something that we didn't really learn when we first started, but it isn't all about the money in what we do as a DJ. There's other things that give us that pleasure, and sometimes the money gets in the way to a point. That excitement we feel when you drop a song and the crowd just goes crazy, and there's the screams of as that we get those goosebumps, and we get that thrill from that. It isn't always about the money and what we do, why we do what we do, but yet, if there's anything that 2020 has shown us, is that kind of is about the money. And what I mean by that is that we've had our weekends, and if you've got kids, you've been able to do things. I've seen some of you out there who have shown you're at the beach with your children, or you've gone camping with your children, and you've like, I've never done this in the summertime. This has been either a weird off time of the year or during the week, but I've never been at a campground on a Saturday. the money is there to help obviously fund your business and run your business and pay you for your time, but it's also compensating you for this time away from your family. And if the kids are growing and are out of the house and you don't have grandchildren and you've got this window, great. Or if you don't have kids yet, utilize this time to be sticking money aside, because later they get kind of expensive. But it's not about the money to get the reward for what we do. Yes, it's part of that reward, but the reward is so many things: the excitement, the fun, the energy we can get from a crowd that's just absolutely going on the dance floor. It's not all about the money, but then it's also about compensating you for that time away from the loved ones. And if it's not worth it with the time away from the loved ones, it's something you definitely have to rethink. Do I really want to be sacrificing these memories, this time, for a little bit of money? It's something that you're all going to have to figure out. So thank you guys. That is literally it. I didn't want to go too long. I want to just keep this tight with the little subtitles so you guys can follow along. Dan and I are going to be back here at the top of the hour. We're going to be talking tonight about moving to a part-time status. If you were a full-time DJ, which a lot of you were, and you're going to be moving to a part-time status, we're going to dig into that tonight a little bit more. And we've got some good tips and concepts with that, and we'll be sharing those at the top of the hours. Again, thank you, Sal, Dynabland, Scott, Stephen. Thank you much for being with, and I appreciate you guys so incredibly much. Go jump out into the djntv.com/chillroom. You guys can go out there and hang out for about half an hour, and we will see you at the top of the hour. Thanks again.